we are now evaluating this patient's heart for signs of residuals of myocarditis. This patient had an ARDS because of an influenza pneumonia, and we want to see how the heart and the echocardiographic features are now a few months after the acute disease. And we start scanning, and we do see that the patient still needs oxygen. And we start scanning in the parasternal approach. And in the parasternal approach, we see that he is not that easy to examine, but we started again at the clavicle, and when we just move the transducer downwards, we eventually will be in a position where we have a parasternal long axis view. We can see the ascending aorta, we see the aortic valve, the mitral valve, the interventricular septum, the right ventricle, the left ventricle. This is the posterior wall of the left ventricle, so actually the posterolateral wall. And what we can apply now is simply a measurement of the thickness of the myocardium, because in myocarditis you can have a myocardial edema and it can be thickened. This is approximately 12 millimeters, which is probably not as accurate as it should be because the interventricular septum is not really horizontal. So we probably overestimated a little bit. We will verify it. The posterolateral wall, the posterior wall, is approximately 1 centimeter, so absolutely normal and absolutely fine. So we continue the exam. We of course save some images. We apply color Doppler. We adjust the field of view we want to see. As well, we change the color setting. I always start the exam with a little bit more depth. Let me put away the color Doppler so that you always have a visualization of the structures posterior to the heart. In this case, the descending aorta seen over here, but also the pericardium. So here you can see sometimes the pericardial effusion and differentiate it from a pleural effusion. So I always start with a little bit more depth, but then I go, of course, closer, and then we adapt the color Doppler, and we look at color Doppler, and we see probably a small MR. The aortic valve seems to be fine. There's this little AR jet, you can see it right over here. There's a little bit of AR and a little bit of MR you can see over here. So far no severe pathology. Also the myocardium doesn't look like a myocardial edema. We continue the scan, and we are now in a parasternal short axis view. We rotate the transducer approximately 90 degrees to the left shoulder of the patient. This is the aortic valve, the tricuspid valve, the interatrial septum. This is the right atrium, the left atrium, and here we even see one great vein entering the right atrium. If you take a closer look over here, that's the pulmonic valve, the right ventricular outflow tract, and that's the right and the left pulmonary artery. So the patient is actually quite nice to scan. We can try to visualize a PR, so a pulmonary regurgitation, which is also trivial. It's seen over here, this small flame, that's the PR. We also save this, and you can also identify that the width of the pulmonary artery seems to be normal, but let us measure. We need to have a really good appreciation of all the structures to really measure it accordingly. And we measure approximately 23. This is in the range of a normal sized pulmonary artery. To continue the exam, we also place a pulse wave Doppler. The volume is a little bit too loud, so we reduce the volume a bit. And we do see no sign of pulmonary stenosis. We can also measure, or try to measure, the pulmonary acceleration time in this view. Let us go back to the parasternal long axis view. If we tilt the transducer a little bit cranial, and with this terrific imaging quality, we do see again the pulmonary artery, the right and the left pulmonary artery. Here you can see the pulmonic valve. I simply tilted the transducer a little bit. Going back to the parasternal long axis, if we play around, you can even see the pulmonic veins entering the left atrium. Tilting the transducer downwards, we see the right ventricle, the right atrium. The entering of the coronary sinus and the inferior vena cava also sometimes can be visualized. But in this case, we see that there is the anterior and the posterior tricuspid valve leaflet. We also include color Doppler. We see a TR, it's probably degree 1 of tricuspid regurgitation, so it's not significant. And we can try to also adjust and implement the continuous wave Doppler. We do get a signal, it's not optimal, but this is just a tip. So if you're not able to visualize the continuous wave Doppler signal with the tricuspid or within the tricuspid valve, you can also try it from a parasternal approach. Going to the parasternal short axis again, we can try to do the same. We just have to adapt the view a little bit and switch on color Doppler. And with color Doppler, we see that there is a degree of TR, and we can try to also put in continuous wave Doppler, but overall, we cannot see an optimal signal in this view. We tilt the transducer downwards, and furthermore, when we tilt it down to the level of the papillary muscles, so this is the mitral valve, we have the anterior and the posterior leaflet of the mitral valve. Also here you can switch on color Doppler to see if there is really a mitral regurgitation. See probably again a small flame. We have to verify it in a 4-chamber view though. If you continue tilting downwards, we can also nicely visualize the myocardium. And measuring the myocardium in end diastole is also possible here. And here we have an area where this is nicely possible. And now it's approximately 10 to 11 millimeters. So almost normal in size. Now, tilting the transducer even downwards, we can go until the apex, moving one intercostal space down. Now we finished with the parasternal views, and now we are going to scan for the apical views. If you don't have such a hole, you can just place the patient a bit different, that the patient can lean on you. You can adjust the position of the patient with your body, your hip. We need a little bit more depth and try to be really at the intercostal space, which is optimal for scanning, which must be in this area. And now we can try to see if there is normal left ventricular function, and overall it seems to be normal. We can also try and measure diastolic function. We have an E wave and an A wave. We are simply going to save it and calculate it later. Then we have to, of course, add tissue Doppler. Again, we need the pulsed wave Doppler, and we do set the pulsed wave Doppler in a lateral and also a medial position of the mitral valve annulus. One more thing I want to show you is that when you scan the heart, you can also apply, bisschen mehr noch zu mir, super. Maybe there's a little bit a degree of foreshortening, this is even better. You can also apply the M mode in the lateral mitral valve annulus. And then you can see and measure the so-called MAPS, so the mitral annular plane systolic excursion. And one of my best teachers, Professor Binder, always refers to this as the poor man's strain. So if you do not have strain imaging, and on this machine, on this specific machine, we do not have strain, but then we can just add M mode, and in this M mode, we see that the MAPS, so this annular excursion, is approximately 15 millimeters, which is totally normal. So that's actually what we want to see. So in the basal region of the left ventricle, laterally, the heart has a normal longitudinal motion. It's just an additional information about left ventricular function. Let's see if we can see if there is a significant amount of mitral regurgitation. It's definitely no significant MR. The color Doppler changed. We want to set it back to the setting we prefer. We do not see a significant AR, a little bit of a flame. We can apply continuous wave Doppler. We can apply the whiz button, and it adjusts us the image. Still, we want to have a lower scale, of course, because his velocity in the aortic valve is briefly above 1 meter per second, which is absolutely normal. Now let's continue with the right ventricle. With the right ventricle, we saw a TR, we graded it as not really significant, but we do want to measure the systolic pulmonary arterial pressure. How can we do that? We have to find the optimal view of the TR signal, and we simply have to adjust the color Doppler, that the continuous wave Doppler actually really identifies where we have this turbulent jet flow. So we have here the jet, and it's a small jet, and you have to really get in this jet to get an optimal signal, which is of course a little bit hard, but here we already had, and sometimes take the really good first signal you get. So we have here a signal, and this is approximately 2.8 meters per second, which would be then a systolic pulmonary arterial pressure of approximately 32 millimeters of mercury. So if you have a subtle TR, sometimes this is, or the first signal you get is probably even the best signal you get, and then we still try to optimize and see if we can verify this, and when we look closely, it's approximately always around the 3 meters per second. So if you see an image like this, it's very hard to differentiate where actually the peak of the TR signal is, then just optimize the image, and then you see, okay, the curve is not perfect, but now you can differentiate where it actually is located. So we can even try and optimize this view even further. First of all, you have to try to really get into the right heart. Then we adjust color Doppler, and if you have an optimal image like this, you can try it again to get the optimal signal, and it's again quite good. So we have 3 meters per second. Another feature is, and this could really be sometimes very helpful, is steering the image. I'm going to show you how this works. You have this feature over here where you see when I remove the cursor, there is tilt and width. Now we are adjusting the width. We can make it relatively small. Then we have a really high frame rate. We have a frame rate of 114 frames per second, which is terrific. And now we do it tilt. So while tilting, we can even try to get better and visualize the right ventricle even more optimal. So this is of course helping you in having the best images. Of course, we need a little bit of more width because we're not done with our examination yet. We want to identify if there are signs for myocarditis. We need a 2-chamber view, we need a 3-chamber view, and overall we don't see regional wall motion abnormalities and the probably normal thickness of the myocardium. Maybe it's borderline. So let me try and measure it again. We need an optimal image. We need it end diastolic, and end diastolic we measure the interventricular septum. It's in the range of 11 to 12 millimeters. So probably it's borderline, but it doesn't look like a myocardial edema. One more thing we want to see is if the right ventricular function is normal. To me, it seems globally borderline. So we use the tissue Doppler, and with tissue Doppler, when we adjust it properly, we see that the basal parts, we can verify that it is contracting normally. More measurements would include, for example, the right ventricular strain to really identify if there are regional wall motion abnormalities in the right ventricle. To conclude our exam, we have to visualize if there is a pericardial effusion. So far we didn't see any signs of it. But for that we asked the patient to lie on the back. Gehen Sie sich auf den Rücken, ganz auf den Rücken. Nicht auf den Bauch, auf den Rücken. Rücken, ja genau, passt. What we are going to do now is we scan the heart from a subcostal view. We need a little bit of more depth, and I don't like the width. I want it a bit wider, not too wide, so we lose the frame rate. And now we have to ask the patient to inhale, einatmen, Ganz einen dicken Bauch machen, im Bauch einatmen. It's very important that patients do inhale in the abdomen, not in the thorax. And for him it's relatively hard because he had an ARDS, he's still dependent on oxygen, so it's not easy for him. Now there are some more tricks we can apply. Können Sie einmal die Füße ein bisschen aufstellen? Genau, und den zweiten auch. Und ganz locker. Sometimes this helps. Normally I don't do it because I don't see a better image of the heart. So we have to work more with the patient. So bitte noch einmal fest einatmen und wirklich im Bauch einatmen. Ganz einen dicken Bauch. When the patient inhales and we apply enough pressure, we see that there are also, I hear no signs of pericardial effusion. Normal weiteratmen. So sometimes if it's hard for patients to inhale, it can be even tricky to get an optimal view from the subcostal approach. But in this patient, we didn't see a sign of pericardial effusion. So if we try to optimize the image even a bit more and try to do it again, we can see that this is the heart and we do not see signs of pericardial effusion. Well, one more thing which would be quite important to see is the inferior vena cava. But overall, I somehow doubt that we can do it in the state the patient is now. Probably he has just eaten something, so it will be hard to visualize it.